I would like to welcome Suzanne on the stand to talk about self-regulation of food intake among short and long-term weight loss maintenance, qualitative findings from the NoHoW.
Yes, thank you, Berit. I'm Susanne from the Aarhus University in Denmark, and I conducted this study together with these colleagues that I mentioned here, and some of them you will hear later. And that's right, as James also said, I went out and talked to real people about their self-regulatory strategies. And this is what I'm going to tell you today. First of all, I have no conflicts to disclosure. When it comes to weight loss maintenance, it has been defined as losing at least 10% of initial body weight and keeping it off for at least 6 months or even more. It is really hard to achieve because not only do you have to lose weight, but you also have to maintain it. And it can be really hard to break those unhealthy habits that you might have. And the risk of regaining is very high, as I'm sure you have also heard about at this conference. There's a recent review by Greaves and his colleagues saying that these behavioral changes that are needed to maintain weight loss can create some sort of psychological tension. So I think it's fair to say that you should be really cautious when you maintain, because it's a hard process. It's not the end point of your weight loss. In this study, we were interested in the food intake and how that, what role it plays in weight loss maintenance. And we don't think of food intake as merely eating, but a whole range of interrelated behavior. And that is something like planning your meals and your food intake, it's shopping, it's storing your food, cooking your food, dealing with impulses, cues, and social norms. And all of this are kind of embedded in people's daily routines and social activities, their normal life, and that is what we wanted to do. We wanted to understand, okay, where are the challenges when it comes to weight loss maintenance in this area. Sorry. So we think it's very important to know what self-regulatory strategies people are using when it comes to these different food-related behaviors. And also we found that it was sort of under research whether there was a difference between short-term maintainers, and we have defined them here as those who have maintained for less than 12 months, and the more long-term maintainers who were able to maintain for more than 12 months. So that is how we defined it here in this little study. So the aim of our project was to explore the self-regulatory strategies and also the self-efficacy beliefs for food intake applied by both short-term and long-term maintainers, and to obtain a better understanding of the challenges and how they applied the different strategies. We did 18 semi-structured interviews in the central Denmark region. We had a few sampling criteria, or not just a few, actually quite a bit. They should be above 18 years of age. They should have an initial BMI of at least 25 or more before weight loss. And they should have lost at least 10%, so a clinical significant weight loss with no regain. Also, it was a criteria that they had to maintain for at least 2 months. And we recruited them through different ads, local general practitioners. We entered weight loss groups on Facebook, and in general, we used this snowballing strategy. We interviewed 15 in person and 3 by Skype. And the interviews lasted around 1 hour and a half, and of course were recorded and transcribed. And here's just a very short characterization of our participants. We ended out with having 9, what we define as short-term maintainers, so between 2 and 12 months. Oh, thank you. And we had 9 that had maintained for more than 12 months. And as you can see, we have an overrepresentation of females. Mean age are sort of not always, all the same, but approximately. You also can see that the initial BMIs were much higher from the short-term maintainers, and therefore also the current BMI. If you see the, can I point with the mouse, maybe? Yeah. You can see the long-term maintainers were actually below the 25 in BMI, while the short-term maintainers were still overweight. And that is, of course, one of the limitations of this study. You can question, well, are the short-term maintainers really only maintaining, or do they have further goals, even though they stated that they were done with their weight loss? That is something that we would say is a limitation to this study. And you can see they all lost, the short-term maintainers lost 21% and the other 25%, so we are dealing with someone who is very successful with weight loss. And the short-term maintainers had spent 8 months, 8 months for their weight loss, while the long-term maintainers have spent almost 21 months. And you can see the mean in terms of weight loss maintenance in months is 5 months for the short-term maintainers and almost 1.5 years for the long-term maintainers. So definitely there were some differences, and we thought that was really interesting to see how they differ in the self-regulatory strategies. And just to give you an overview, I thought I would just present it to you, so I'll go through these different stages and give you a few examples of the self-regulatory strategies and some quotes and so on. So when it comes to planning of food intake and meals, there was a clear tendency that the short-term maintainers had a stronger need for planning or for action planning, while the long-term maintainers, they also planned, but they also relied on these good habits that they seem to have built. I had one long-term maintainer saying, well, if I feel that my good habits are slipping, I plan my food intake for the next couple of days just to get sort of back on track. I also had another one saying, well, I always have peeled carrots in the fridge. If I want a snack, I always go there first. So that was her way of planning, not eating more unhealthy stuff. So she knew it's a good habit to keep this in the fridge because then I'll learn myself to go there first. In terms of the short-term maintainer, this is just one example of how she would plan. I mean, she would write a meal plan and put it on the fridge for everyone to see, because she was then reminded every time she entered the fridge, she would know, oh, this is my meals for the coming week, and so on. So that was a few examples of the strategies in terms of planning. When it comes to shopping and storing, again, the short-term maintainers followed a grocery list. They did this meal-to-meal planning. They lived by what I've called self-restriction through non-availability, so living by, I don't eat it if I don't buy it. So really thinking about not eating or buying or storing items that they actually didn't want to eat. And not buying these things also sort of strengthened their beliefs in that they could maintain. The long-term maintainers, I mean, they improvised a bit more when they were shopping, but again, without jeopardizing the weight loss maintenance efforts. They seemed to be more flexible, so they didn't avoid any foods completely. They knew how to get back on track again. And we have one man here, a 4-month weight loss maintainer, saying, well, my grocery list is what I use when I shop. It keeps me from looking at all the offers. So he was very strict using the grocery list. Then I have this more long-term maintainer saying, well, I just buy huge, huge amounts of vegetables. It is more improvisation. So she explained that, okay, she just bought whatever she saw, what she liked, and then she improvised when coming home and finding out, okay, what do I do with these amounts of vegetables? When it comes to preparing and cooking, it seems to be so that the short-term maintainers would like to experiment with new ingredients, trying to build new habits, taking certain foods instead of cream. Maybe they used spread cheese and to make a sauce and so on. And they were also thinking ahead, trying to prepare larger batches. So they knew that, okay, maybe I don't have that much time for cooking food throughout the week, but if I can prepare big batches, maybe that will ensure that I will have or be more successful in terms of thinking about my weight loss maintenance. The long-term maintainers had very strong self-efficacy beliefs when it came to maintenance, and they also were good at improvising with the ingredients, and they were sort of ensuring some supportive food preparing strategies. And also they said, well, preparing food is actually a mindful aspect now to me because I'm doing something good for myself. I'm maintaining my weight loss, so that is why I decided on enjoying it and make it a nice thing for myself. So the short-term maintainers, I have one saying, well, we cook a double portion. It's a lot of work, but then we have it structured, and overall it saves time. And that was said in the context of not just saving time, but also making sure that she will not jeopardize her maintenance of her weight loss. And then I just included a quote on one of those who found it more as a mindful thing to cook. She said, well, cooking used to be something that I wanted to be done with as quickly as possible. Now I actually enjoy it. It's fun trying out new foods and techniques. It's like a break for me. So she found herself more at ease with cooking, and it was not such a hassle anymore because she was doing something good for herself. In terms of eating, there was quite some similarities between the short-term and the long-term maintainers. They all had cues to control the portion sizes. That could be the size of the plate. It could be, pouring the portion on the plate and then leaving the pots in the kitchen. Also, both types of maintainers showed flexible restraint, and they also seemed to form some habits in terms of eating same type of meal. So if they found that, oh, this works for me as a breakfast, then they tend to eat that. Maybe not every day, but almost. And the same with lunches and so on. Especially the short-term maintainers also showed some sort of trade-off strategy, and I have an example I'll show you in a bit. And they also had this experience with getting back on track, that they were able to do that. That helped them build some self-efficacy beliefs that they could actually go back on track. And that was also very evident in terms of the long-term maintainers. But also, when it comes to the long-term maintainers, there was one saying, well, I have learned that I won't die from feeling hungry. So that was her cue that it is okay. I don't have to eat whenever I feel bored or just a little bit hungry. So she said, well, that is something you really have to learn and allow yourself to feel hungry. And this is just an example of this trade-off strategy that a number of the short-term maintainers expressed. I have this man saying, well, I can fancy a burger or a big pizza, but I managed to catch myself and say, no, you really don't want to do that because you know how much time you need to spend losing it again. So he had this trade-off, oh, is it worth it? And I also had some long-term maintainers who also had this sort of trade-off strategy still. In terms of the barriers and resources, the social norms were definitely barriers. And for the long-term maintainers, I mean, social acceptance, knowing that, okay, you're keeping your weight loss and so on, that helped build their self-efficacy beliefs in terms of maintenance. And they have also built self-control as a stronger resource. And they were able to deal with lapses more efficiently because they know eventually they will lapse, but it's all about getting faster back on track and that the lapses don't last for that long. For the short-term maintainers, they try to get help from the social context. So letting people know that they were maintaining their weight or trying to avoid different things like buffets and so on could help them build this self-efficacy in terms of maintenance. And also they were really struggling with building this self-control, and I just included, again, a few quotes. I had one long-term maintainer saying, now, if I have a day with bad food choices, I'm quicker to get back in the saddle. It does not last for several days or weeks as earlier. So being very confident that she could be back on track, and that also shows some flexibility. And for the short-term maintainer, I had this one woman who were talking about dining at a restaurant, and she said, well, normally you would think that, oh, I have paid for this food and then I have to eat it. And then she figured, well, yes, I have to pay for it, but what is it that I am paying for? I pay for the food, but when I'm full, I would rather leave some than pay by being fat. So she was very aware of social norms. Yeah, when you pay for food, you should eat it and all these sort of things. But she was like, no, I've had it. Now I try to build my self-control instead. So just to conclude, there was some overlap between short and long-term maintainers in terms of eating and dealing with barriers and utilizing the resources helpful for weight loss maintenance. And there were differences when it came to planning, shopping and storing, and preparing and cooking behaviors. And we think that our results indicate that weight loss maintainers have to find and adapt sort of their own combination of self-regulatory strategies that support weight loss maintenance, but it also has to fit with their own food-related life situation. I just want to say thank you. I think time is up, and if you want to read more, as Berit said, it's published, so you can see it here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. We can have 1 or 2 questions now, if there are a few. Yeah, Maaike, please. State your name and where you come from, please.
Thank you. Maaike Kruseman from Geneva. I have a question about the group, the short-term weight loss maintainers. Did they consider themselves as maintainers, or were they still in the process of trying to lose more, which could also explain part of the differences between both groups?
Yeah, I mean, that is also what we put as one of the limitations in our study, but actually they had to do a screening survey beforehand where they stated, yeah, I'm done losing weight, now I'm maintaining, and we also asked about this during the interviews, and they again stated, yeah, I'm done with the weight loss, now I'm maintaining, so, but again, I mean, it can make you question whether that is actually true. That's true.
Oh, thank you for the talk. I'm Marije Galavasi. I'm a GP in Sweden. I work in an obesity unit also. My question is, do you have some knowledge? Do you think these long-term maintainers, do you think they change strategy, that they might have had the same strategy in the beginning? Or are these the people, do they get to be less rigid? They're not, even the short term is not rigid in your study, but do you understand that?
Yeah, I think I understand what you mean. I would say definitely, because the short-term maintainers, I mean, when they explained how their strategies in weight loss maintenance, they said, well, it's some of the things are similar to what I did during my weight loss, but I'm a bit more flexible. And then we had the long-term maintainers say, well, I'm even more flexible. I know I will not jeopardize my maintenance if I have one day where I eat something else. So I think they really are able to build a stronger self-control and self-regulation, but it takes time, evidently, I think. So, I mean, it could be interesting to see where, I mean, maybe in a more quantitative study, see where does it really change.
Do they develop and adapt their strategy? Or
yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay, again, thank you very much.
Yeah, okay.